Hello. Today I'd like to share some things that I have found and that I feel and think are probably quite good to consider when you're working with the mineral kingdom, and in particular working with things like stones, crystals. And yeah, I'm just going to go through a list, I guess, that I've curated. And first off, I wanted to start by saying that a bit of a caution, I guess I could say, and that is just to be careful when you're working with crystals, stones that are toxic. Not all of them are safe for human touch. Some of them become safer when they are in a tumbled form, so not so much in their raw form. And just good to probably look up and maybe do a little bit of research if there's like a particular crystal that you feel drawn to work with, that you would be physically working with. And also good to obviously wash your hands after touching, especially stones that are considered potentially a little bit toxic. And if they are quite toxic, I wouldn't physically touch them. And then I guess moving on from that, I've just talked about the physical touch of them. You can also work with mineral kingdom crystals, in most kingdoms, should I say, not just always necessarily like you have to actually go out and physically obtain that specific item in the physical form. You can also work through the use of your imagination. You could work through different arts like photography, painting, drawing, all of that too, if you want to bring in a particular stone, particular mineral into your field. You don't necessarily always have to go out and actually obtain the physical form of the crystal. And, because there is obviously a whole range of environmental repercussions or effects, should I say, from obviously obtaining physical form of the crystal. I'm not going to go too much more into that. So the first thing I wanted to mention is to ensure that you're choosing stones that are right for, I guess some would call it like your energy field. If you are working with stones that you're finding you're getting a reaction to, it could be emotional, mental, physical, etheric, and some could say, oh, well, actually you need to lean into it, and some would say, well, maybe it's not the right kind of stone for you to be working with. It could be too abrasive, it could be elevating you too much out of where you are, it could be too dense for what it is that you're also wanting to work with as well. So just being really being really energetic and really feeling into whether working with a particular stone is right for you. And it might be right for you today and then be different tomorrow. So there's also that to remember as well. Now, also when you're choosing a stone, if you're obtaining one in the physical form, adopting one, you don't necessarily have to be looking for one that is of a particular size, a particular shape, or it has to be perfect. They're just as powerful if they've got a chip in them or an obscure kind of shape, or if they're very small. It doesn't have to be the most glamorous version of the stone. And obviously one that is often talked about is cleansing the crystals, obviously prior to use, and the way in which you will cleanse them will be different depending upon the stone. Some stones you couldn't put them in water if you wanted to use that as a cleansing element. So yeah, being careful with what elements the stone can be cleansed with. And then also there's the reactivation as well. So harmonizing yourself with the crystal, kind of like turning the switch on with the crystal. Different ways to do that again. I find that probably intention is one of the best ways, but there are many other ways, and you can do some research into that if you feel you need to. And And yeah, so you'll be obviously doing those two things prior to the use of a crystal, and it's always good to cleanse a crystal post use of the crystal as well. And taking your time and creating space to work with them. So turning off your phone, being really present, not being in a hurry to be somewhere else, and that it just goes with almost anything if you can within your life, right? And exploring them without preconceived ideas. I understand, you may feel like you want to research with the crystal prior to use of it. There's nothing necessary to say that's wrong to do it in that way. But you could also experiment with what is it like working with the crystal without having any preconceived ideas about it, what it may do to myself or to the situation that you're working with. And also good to remember that changes usually occur over a period of time and space. It's not very likely that something is going to shift, change immediately. That can happen, of course, but it's good to just be patient with the process. Obviously, you don't need to be overly externalizing your power to the stone, to the mineral, to the crystal, and saying, oh my God, save me, or whatever it is. But it's just a way that may potentially assist with a situation that you are in the process of. But also being prepared for a potential healing challenge. Again, that goes back to, creating time and space to work with these. So if you also come across maybe you're experiencing nausea or dizziness, you can remove the crystal from your physical form, get into your breath, get really grounded. You may want to use something like a flint or a smoky quartz as well, just to help breathe through that energy that you may be experiencing if that arises. You don't have to keep on working with the stone, the mineral, the crystal if those kind of effects are coming up for you. Some may feel like they want to lean into it. There's nothing necessarily wrong with deciding, hey, this is enough right now. I need to just really ground and remove the crystal from my space. Another good one, especially for self-care, pre, post, during, is drinking lots of water, really good quality water. And water just helps with moving all sorts of things. It's the same, well, it's not the same, but you could look at it similarly in the way that, water running through a creek, through a river, is often very cleansing of itself. It's helping move things through. It's similar in the sense of a body of a human. I'm not saying the exact same, but using it as a metaphor to help describe what I'm expressing here. And then, of course, resting and relaxing after a session as well. It'll help with the integration process and also maybe enhance the effects of what it's assisting with as well. And so different colors, different types of elements reside in different crystals. There may be certain colors of certain crystals that can be associated with different types of energy points, energy bodies, or bodies, should I say, that we have. There's also crystals, stones, minerals. They're made up of different elements. There's some that are created out of what we might consider more of a fire element, or some that are more of a wood element. And those sort of different elements can affect the body in different ways, depending on the philosophies, your own understandings with that. Just the same as with colours. Different colours can invoke different feelings within ourselves. Again, it's going to affect different bodies that we have in different ways as well. Now, some may sort of consider, well, how do I choose the right crystal for me if I'm really wanting to work with a particular crystal? There's different dowsing, I guess people might call it, techniques. So, often people talk about there's finger dowsing methods. There's, other pendulum, usually using a stone or a metal methods as well. to help with choosing it, or you know, it may come to you in different ways. In a dream, it's coming up in conversation a lot, you're seeing it a lot, you know, and that's really up to you. You can, it'll just come naturally, usually to you, as to which one you will be drawn to. And yeah, another good thing to remember is the maintaining of your crystals as well. So being really gentle with them. Some of them don't like being in sunlight. If you want to put them away in a place like in a box or a pouch, you know, also good to consider that maybe they don't want to be all together, especially if they're different types. So giving them all space, you know, a little bit like a lot of other things in our lives, just creating little spaces, because they have their own energy fields. They are their own beings in themselves, although, you know, we're not going to say they are of human, you know, and they're obviously different in the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, but they have their own consciousness, their own energy field in itself. So you're taking good care of them, obviously. I don't know why I'm being called to share this as well, but you know, it's not uncommon for sometimes crystals to break, even though you're being gentle with them. They could happen for lots of different reasons. Maybe you no longer need to work with the crystal. Maybe the parts of the crystal need to be shared. Maybe there's another way in which you have to work with the crystal. Sometimes crystals just go missing, and that can happen. All sorts of reasons again. And yeah, and obviously there's different cultural and indigenous wisdoms with this kind of kingdom as well. And I'd recommend, if wherever it is that you're residing, if you can get in touch with some of those wisdoms, and it may give you a bit of a deeper understanding of the mineral kingdom and how those cultures or indigenous peoples work with them and their practices with them, the kind of laws that they have with them, you know, LORE. And yeah, I always find that to be really interesting. It's always good to connect back to other wisdoms, and just remembering, you know, like that we are all of different, we're different but we're same. I guess that's what I'm trying to say there. So yes, if there's anything that you want to share about you working with the mineral kingdom, any questions as well, you're welcome to leave that in the comment section down below. And yes, I will see you in the next vlog.